Naomi watched her world fall apart before her very eyes. Famine, death, and unknown roads. In a single turn, she lost her husband, her 2 sons, and the meaning her days once held. Her story begins at the very moment when hope is depleted and the heart faces its rawest sorrows. Naomi was not a queen nor a hero, but an ordinary woman, and it's within her radical vulnerability, her honest lament before heaven, that the quiet miracle of Scripture blossoms. Perhaps you too have felt the sting of shattered circumstances, alone and questioning why to keep going. Welcome to Bible in Colors, a channel where great stories come alive because they echo the pain and victories of real people like you and me. In each episode, we reveal the human side behind the sacred, and few narratives achieve that so intensely as Naomi's journey. Her tale is full of loss, renunciation, and above all, a resilience that transcends generations. Here, the main character doesn't hide behind fake strength. She cries, protests, owns her bitterness. Yet, it's on this bedrock of sincerity that hope finds fertile soil. Naomi, a widow and a stranger in a hostile land, could have been just another nameless woman in her era. But God sees beyond appearances, and what seemed a failure to the world became a gateway to redemption, grace, and new life in God's hands. Naomi is a symbol for all who walk dark valleys of grief, scarcity, or dread of what the future holds. Her biography is not just a string of tragedies, it is a brave invitation to stand in the rubble. How did she keep going? How did she find space for faith amid bitterness? Why is her name, meaning pleasant, honored in Scripture as a model of spiritual maturity? These questions cross centuries and reach us now, as many seek meaning, maintain connections, and try to trust when escape seems impossible. At Bible in Colors, we believe stories like Naomi's show there is no shame in tears, only in refusing to begin again. This series will connect biblical context, history, and practical insight, inviting you to see your own story as a tile in the great mosaic of Christian faith. Find yourself in Naomi's doubts, her sleepless nights, her embrace after loss, rebuilt brick by love, faithfulness, and never-ending grace. Join us on this journey marked by tears, choices, and providential encounters. In each chapter, Naomi challenges us to redefine resilience, not the absence of pain, but the brave decision not to surrender life to suffering. Maybe you know someone, or are that person who, tired of losing, almost gave up. What if Naomi's experience could ignite hope for you? The same God who gave her a new tomorrow waits for you. Come discover how faith becomes strength and companionship in times of adversity. Share in the comments if you've ever reached a point where you thought there was no way out. How did you find strength to start over? Your story may kindle hope for someone who needs it today. Naomi's historical and cultural background is marked by profound tensions and real, everyday challenges. She lived during Israel's turbulent period of judges, when moral and social standards shifted and survival hinged on rain, harvests, family support, and community solidarity. Bethlehem, her homeland, was a small farming village hemmed in by dry fields and low hills, with trade in dusty squares and faith nourished during moonlit nights as people recalled God's promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Naomi's family left for Moab in the grip of a devastating famine, a painful, risky decision typical of an age when food shortages threatened life itself. The book of Ruth tells that Naomi, her husband Elimelech, and their sons, Mahlon and Chilion, abandoned their native land in search of bread, crossing political and spiritual boundaries. Moab, a neighboring region, was also the symbol of the outsider or stranger, often viewed with suspicion by the Hebrews. Living there meant dealing with cultural and religious barriers. Naomi, a woman of faith, had to leave behind her traditions, family network, and certainties, becoming a stranger among a people with different customs. Faith amid longing, culture shock, and need reveals a courage that goes far deeper than her story's surface. Jewish and Christian tradition honor Naomi for the dignity she maintained amid adversity. Her choices, shaped by family loyalty, respect for God's law, and ongoing concern for her loved ones, prove that being foreign never excludes from God's plan and care. In Scripture, women often inhabit territories of resistance, rebuilding, and nurturing life even when not the story's central figures. Naomi belongs to that group, braving famine, grief, and alienation, reinventing her identity by remaining faithful to truth, compassion, and spiritual sensitivity. The deaths of Elimelech, Mahlon, and Chilion exposed Naomi to the fragility of widowhood in the ancient Near East. Widows in Hebrew tradition often faced marginalization and a lack of legal and economic protection. This context shows the depth of vulnerability Naomi faced. Without husband or sons, her family silently vanished around her. Yet her resilience blossomed. She refused to be invisible and sought meaning amid suffering, striving to reorganize life with whatever remained. Naomi's very name, pleasant, sweetness, contrasts with her declaration in grief. When she returns to Bethlehem, she asks to be called Mara, bitter, showing her honesty facing her journey. This choice teaches today's world. Don't hide pain, don't fake perfection, but allow yourself to feel and speak anguish honestly. That transforms how we face and heal our wounds. In biblical geography, Moab was a land of contrasts. Fertile plains, blue hills, abundance turning quickly to want. Naomi's literal and symbolic crossing raises universal questions. How do we handle sudden loss, migrate into hostile environments, rebuild bonds as strangers, stay true amid pressure? Her neighbors and people witnessed reactions of pain but also courage. The cultural interplay of Israel and Moab is the backdrop for all who try to start over amid adversity, wrestling with longing, fear, and dashed hopes. Naomi's strength shines brightest when, grieving and empty, she opts to return to Bethlehem with her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. This human and spiritual move involves responsibility and sensitivity. She wants to free the young widows from the burden of joining her on an uncertain road, in a land where promises feel distant and risk is high. Naomi represents everyone who has had to say goodbye, let go, make hard choices to protect those they love, even at the expense of their own pain. Her story shows that even in barren times, faith lives where there are no easy answers. God is present in the most foreign lands and difficult moments of separation. Surveying this landscape of loss, dislocation, and reinvention, we are invited to ask, what are the Moabs of our time? What moves us to leave comfortable zones for survival, physical, emotional, or spiritual? How do we react when security falls away and only a long, uncertain journey remains, with the hope that somewhere God is waiting for us? Naomi invites you to look at the world with honesty and courage, finding in the lines of your own story the path from lament to renewal. Share in the comments a time you had to start over in unfamiliar territory or after a loss. How was that process for you? What support made a difference? Your story could light the way for someone crossing their own Moab. Naomi's narrative becomes even richer as we witness the delicate web of relationships and emotional entanglements that shape her life in Moab, and later, back in Bethlehem. Scripture presents a woman constantly confronted by impossible choices. Losing her husband and 2 sons is enough to break any heart. Yet Naomi does not surrender to total isolation. She lives with her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, both Moabite women, young and marked by recent grief and distance from their own families. Amid homes shattered by loss, small joys and affectionate bonds form, even under the weight of dashed expectations and uncertain futures. Naomi, with admirable wisdom, realizes her path is too harsh to drag her daughters-in-law along. She feels profound responsibility for their lives and well-being, encouraging their return to their own mothers in Moab, where they might find protection and perhaps new marriages. The farewell scene is among the Bible's most moving. Kisses, tears, protests, and prayers envelop the three women at their crossroads. Orpah, painfully and reluctantly, yields to Naomi's plea and returns to her family. Ruth, however, remains resolute. The exchange between Naomi and Ruth echoes across centuries as a hymn to loyalty and courage before the unknown. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Ruth's words are the seeds of a new future. Through them, Naomi finds the first real spark of hope in a long time. No longer alone, Naomi gains the blessing of a chosen daughter. Her bond with Ruth, forged in loyalty and trust, even stronger than blood. Their return to Bethlehem carries scars and challenges. The road back is long, filled with memories of better days and lost joy. Naomi's old neighbors barely recognize her, so profound is the change wrought by suffering. Gray hair, a marked face, tired posture. Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, she declares, making her bitterness public. In this act, bold, vulnerable, honest, Naomi delivers a key lesson. Do not mask suffering nor pretend optimism where there is emptiness, but name your pain as the start of any new journey. Arriving home during barley harvest, Naomi and Ruth face practical survival challenges. With no resources or men to provide, they rely on ancient gleaning laws that allow the poor to gather the remnant grain. Ruth volunteers for field work, showing the strength and courage learned from Naomi. Naomi, in turn, relies on her wisdom and experience to guide Ruth, teaching her about the customs, traditions, and the God of Israel. Ruth gleans in the fields of Boaz, a respected relative of Elimelech, Naomi's late husband. Naomi's guidance for Ruth shows her care and strategic vision. She knows alliances, mutual respect, and compassion can transform destinies. Naomi encourages Ruth, instructs her how to act, and ensures her rest and safety. With every gesture, Naomi reinvents herself. No longer just a passive sufferer, she becomes counselor, bridge, and mentor, sparking decisive changes in her family's path. In the shared life of Naomi and Ruth, we see values of solidarity, listening, and adaptability. Beyond tragedy, they journey together, respecting limits and nurturing hope even in uncertain times. Their relationship defies cultural expectations. In a land where foreigners faced suspicion, Naomi makes Ruth not merely a helper, but an adopted daughter and life partner. By making room for otherness, Naomi embraces a future she once thought lost. Naomi's background support prepares the way for redemptive encounters and the birth of a blessed lineage. Her humility shows the power of silent action, planting trust while seemingly only enduring sorrow. Ruth thrives in Boaz's fields thanks to Naomi's trust and the small growing web of support around them. Their routines, exchanged glances, shared meals, and the intersection of little miracles and great silences reveal that God works in the details and changes destinies in daily life. Boaz's involvement, made possible directly and indirectly by Naomi's insight and actions, shows that sometimes our greatest contribution is preparing others' hearts for experiences we may never live ourselves. Naomi, though not the miracle's final protagonist, is the crossroads by which the story moves and blooms. Out of her pain springs the rebirth of a people. From her counsel comes a hope wider than she ever imagined. Tell us in the comments about a time when someone's support or advice was pivotal in your life, especially during hard times. Spread hope by celebrating those who've been a Naomi to you. Naomi's story, as it nears its climax, weaves together deep layers of humanity, faith, and expectation. Both women's journeys reach maximum vulnerability and the cusp of dramatic change. Recognizing that Boaz, her family's kinsman redeemer, is showing special favor to Ruth, Naomi understands that a new horizon is opening before them. Wise and attentive to God's guiding hand, Naomi blends shrewdness and trust to advise Ruth as she approaches Boaz. recognizing that in life's details, divine providence prepares restoration for those scarred by loss. Ruth and Boaz's relationship develops under strict traditions concerning property and lineage. Naomi, who understands Israel's customs, sees that family redemption, shaped by the Levirate and kinsman laws, can, by grace, bring stability and dignity to them both. She gives Ruth detailed instructions for respectfully and courageously presenting herself to Boaz on the threshing floor. Naomi's plan fuses courage, strategy, and prayer, a symbol of wisdom forged by pain and constant hope. The nighttime meeting between Ruth and Boaz is full of respect and integrity. Boaz, a man of principle, recognizes Ruth's virtue and Naomi's dignity, vowing to do all he can to honor their family's legacy. When Naomi hears how the encounter unfolded, hope and gratitude blossom. Her trust in God is rewarded as Boaz takes on the redeemer role, negotiating with other claimants to win the right to redeem Ruth and, in turn, restore Naomi's family name. The emotional high point arrives when Ruth and Boaz marry, and from their union comes a son, Obed. The birth of Naomi's grandchild is more than personal joy. It signifies that God visits, heals, and restores what seemed lost forever. Neighbor women celebrate with Naomi, praising the Lord who gives her descendants and renews her life in old age. Naomi holds Obed in her arms, becoming his nurse and publicly embracing her mission to nurture and care, now as a grandmother. In the poetic cycle, what began in lament and isolation overflows into song and community celebration. Taking on the role of grandmother and ancestor of David's lineage, Naomi is honored in the memory of God's people. Her participation in the messianic story proves that the Lord's mercies are renewed and surprising, even after immense loss. The spiritual and emotional zenith shows that fidelity to God, even shrouded in tears, opens the path to blessings beyond oneself, blessings that flow across generations. Naomi, once Mara, finds her life full again, sweet, purposeful, and rich. Her story testifies to renewal possible, even in the harshest seasons. The power of this narrative's resolution reveals that miracles are rarely instantaneous. They are patiently woven, thread by thread, through acts of faith, endurance in adversity, and choices rooted in ethical principles and reliance on God. Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz's drama becomes a reference for collective overcoming and the wide-reaching power of redemptive relationships. The sincere union of a mother-in-law, a foreign daughter-in-law, and a righteous man changes not just a family's story, but Israel's legacy, prophetically foreshadowing the Messiah's arrival. Share in the comments a moment when small choices of trust or courage, inspired by faith, brought great change to you or your family. Your story may inspire others to persevere and expect the unexpected. The destiny of Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz comes to fruition in a resoundingly celebratory conclusion, marked by welcome, rebirth, and a profound sense of a mission fulfilled. The woman who returned to Bethlehem, emptied, bitter, and undone by loss, arrives at her journey's end, carrying the marks of a life restored by grace and the courage to start again. The marriage of Ruth and Boaz is not just a private happy ending. It represents the collective restoration of all that was lost, the reconstitution of a threatened lineage, and the quiet unfolding of God's promises to every faithful heart. As Obed grows in Naomi's arms, we discern faith's transgenerational reach. The boy, born from that unlikely union, would become the grandfather of David, Israel's greatest king, an essential link in the genealogy of the Messiah, Jesus. This shows that fidelity, compassion, and courageous choices made in secret amid pain echo for centuries, blessing multitudes. God uses forgotten and unlikely people to construct mighty purposes, proving that no life is insignificant before the author of history. Naomi, who once wanted to be called Mara, now has eyes filled with joy and arms full of new hope. She becomes a reference, living proof that new beginnings are possible even when all hope seemed lost. The community's respect and admiration, shown as neighbors, congratulate her as Obed's nurse, recognize the wisdom, faith, and goodness forged in life's deepest valleys. Scripture closes the tale by honoring the women surrounding Naomi, witnesses, singers of praise, recorders of her legacy, reminding us that the most lasting changes happen in community, never in isolation. Ruth's selfless and steadfast presence highlights how choosing to love, care, and remain can change destinies. The love between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, untied by blood, is the silent miracle that transcends convention. Quiet yet decisive female protagonism is an invitation for women and men in every era to recognize the strength of love that includes, welcomes, and brings about new life from devastation. The end of Ruth's book reinforces essential values for all seeking real hope. Solidarity that refuses selfishness, faith that persists when things seem impossible, and the courage to step into an unseen tomorrow. All of this has collective significance, for Naomi's story does not belong to her family alone. It echoes in every follower of Jesus, every person invited to rewrite stories through trust in God. Naomi's journey teaches that true victory is not the absence of pain, but the willingness to be shaped by it. Her losses are not an endpoint, but the doorway to new beginnings that ripple through time and history. The abiding message of her life is clear. Moving from bitterness to praise, from solitude to community, from mourning to a mission larger than herself is possible. Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz stand as models of faith and humanity for all who seek meaning in difficult days. Their memory brings to light the pedagogy of care, hope, and reconstruction that is possible only when journeying together with loyalty, honesty, and confidence in God. Share in the comments how Naomi's journey has inspired new decisions or fresh starts in your life. Help build a network of hope and courage in our community. Naomi's story offers the contemporary audience deep and multifaceted lessons. Even amid great adversity, it is possible to maintain faith and seek meaning when the path seems dark and uncertain. Naomi's resilience invites us all to see in our own stories moments of loss, waiting, and transformation, as well as the strength needed to continue despite sorrow. In today's world marked by economic, social, and personal crises, Naomi's example serves as a beacon for those feeling lost or disheartened. Practically, her journey encourages us to look toward the future with hope and act wisely in the present. Resilience isn't denial of pain, but facing it proactively, seeking solutions, and looking beyond. Naomi didn't become paralyzed by grief. She chose to return to Bethlehem, open doors for a fresh start, and invest in reconstructing family and community. This courageous decision challenges us not to let difficulties silence our greater purpose. Moreover, Naomi reminds us of the importance of relationships in overcoming trials. Her bond with her daughters-in-law, especially Ruth, shows how mutual support, respect, and trust can transform journeys and provide strength amid uncertainty. In daily life, fostering communities where pain can be shared and eased is essential for collective well-being. Her example stimulates building relationships as genuine spaces of welcome and renewal. Another vital point is Naomi's wisdom in knowing when to let go, trust someone else's path, and empower Ruth to lead her own story. This lesson is inspiring today because we often face situations requiring us to support without controlling, love without holding back, release and trust. Naomi embodies this freedom maturely and models for anyone seeking balanced faith lived between care and liberty. Beyond emotional and relational aspects, her walk highlights faith's spiritual dimension. Trust in God even when human plans seem to unravel. Naomi's faith is active and responsible. She moves, decides, and faces challenges, yet all grounded in certainty of God's presence, even in life's darkest valleys. This balance of action and trust is vital for modern spiritual life, rescuing the need for faith as experience and journey. Finally, Naomi's story opens reflection on aging and second chances. When many would have succumbed to bitterness, she chose not to be defined by circumstance. Her life teaches that at any stage God can renew strength, open new paths, and bring to bloom what once seemed lost. Aging is not an end, but preparing new harvests, teaching, embracing new roles with gratitude and purpose. Naomi challenges us to reimagine life, recognize pain as fertile ground for transformation, and heed the call to be reborn daily. Her life is an open invitation for those who seek not merely to survive, but to live fully, even through the harshest soul winters. Do you feel called to reclaim this courage and build your own story of hope and new beginnings? Tell us in the comments how you find strength to face challenges and share practical steps you can take to strengthen your faith and hope today. Now, reflecting on Naomi's life invites us into deep, practical spirituality, sustaining her journey. More than memories, the biblical story offers pathways to steadfast prayer and true connection with God, especially in pain and uncertainty. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that woman, aged and worn by suffering, kneeling beneath Bethlehem's starry sky. Feel the night stillness embrace her heart, while her hands rise in silent plea for strength, forgiveness, comfort, and wisdom for the days ahead. I invite you to join in this prayer, representing the daily struggle for renewed hope and faith. Lord, just as you sustained Naomi in her hardest days, sustain me too. May I find in you the peace that calms a troubled soul and the strength to rise when all seems lost. May my life be marked by resilience, born from the embrace of your grace. Teach me to look beyond today's shadows and trust that your plans are greater than my losses. Pray allowing these words to penetrate your spirit, connecting your story with Naomi's, understanding prayer as not just asking, but also making space to listen and receive divine guidance. It is in silent pleas and attentive heart listening that many rebirths occur. Just as Naomi had courage to return to Bethlehem with a broken heart, you too can find a new path, guided by the light of faith. Let this communion be your foundation for facing today's challenges. Cast every worry and anguish into God's hands, trusting that He is hope's author and guardian of destinies. Make daily prayer a moment of real encounter with yourself and the Lord, nourishing your soul with confidence and peace amid turmoil. May you carry in your heart Naomi's courage each day, patient faith, and the certainty that God renews strength. Be empowered by love that transforms and inspires endurance, ready for the next steps of your spiritual journey. Know you are not alone in adversity. Naomi's story is living proof of God's steadfast care for His children. Share in the comments your favorite prayer or a word that strengthens your faith in difficult times. Let's build each other up on this journey. The key biblical passage highlighting Naomi's story is found in the book of Ruth, particularly chapters 1 and 2, recounting her journey from family loss to rediscovering herself and hope's resurgence. A crucial verse for grasping this narrative's depth is Ruth 1:20, where Naomi says, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made my life very bitter." This statement, heavy with pain and honesty, reveals how Naomi faces harsh reality and openly expresses feelings without masks or false hope. Theologically, this passage shows a frank confrontation with hardship, but also marks the beginning of transformation by grace. Naomi doesn't deny her bitterness. She names it and allows her pain to be a genuine expression of the human condition in suffering. Yet Ruth's text shows that bitterness is not the final chapter. It's just part of the story, preparing a new start, demonstrating God's work, even in silence and waiting. Naomi and Ruth's theology fits within Old Testament traditions, valuing honesty with God and self. The narrative does not try to cover crises with false optimism, but invites vulnerability and realistic faith, recognizing that even amid adversity, divine action is possible. Moreover, Naomi advising her daughters-in-law to return home shows love, responsibility, and trust in God's greater plan, reflecting mature faith anchored in discernment. It's also important to highlight the symbolism of names. Naomi means pleasant or delightful, whereas Mara refers to bitter. This name change writes a lament and emotional outpouring, but also carries the potential for reconnecting with primordial sweetness. This semantic shift teaches that faith embraces human phases, from pain to renewal, and this movement neither excludes nor diminishes the spiritual value of the sufferer. In the Ruth chapters, Naomi is a paradigm of being on a threshold, between past and future, loss and restoration, silence and outcry. Her story questions simplistic faith notions that erase suffering or promise instant comfort. Instead, it reminds us true faith walks alongside full reality, involving pain, struggle, stubborn hope, and gradual transformation. Contextualizing this passage for today's audience shows that many still live in transitional, uncertain times. The text invites recognition and welcoming of these phases, opening to hope born of painful truth and trust in a sovereign, faithful God. Naomi's honesty invites us to shed masks and submit to a deep healing and self-recovery process. Thus, this passage is one of Scripture's great legacies, a sincere dialogue between human and God that does not erase doubts or pain, but makes room for crossing them with faith, courage, and perseverance. For those seeking to understand their journeys, Naomi is mirror and guide, revealing God's constant presence even in darkest valleys. Share your reflection in the comments on how honesty during hard times can prepare our hearts for renewal and miracles. We arrive at a special moment to speak directly with you following Naomi's story. Reflections like this are powerful when they confront us with our own experiences, doubts, and hopes. Naomi, a woman marked by pain and new life, teaches that faith is not a shield against hardship, but a light guiding our steps through storms. What is your Naomi? How have you reacted to trials and losses? You may have felt everything fall apart with nothing left, but Naomi's journey invites us to believe there is always new promise and renewed life. Amid so much suffering, Naomi teaches us we are not alone. She invites us to look at those walking with us, like Ruth did, loyal and loving despite the unknown and adversity. Who are the Ruths in your life? Who stays by your side even when the path seems tough or uncertain? That support network is vital to keep faith alive. What can you do to be this faithful companion to friends, family, or strangers needing hope? Moreover, Naomi shows that faith matures in honest dialogue with God. Saying her soul is bitter reveals it's allowed to feel and express discouragement, sadness, and questions. What feelings do you hide out of fear, shame, or duty? How different would it be to live authentically before God and community? We invite you to explore these emotions, accept them as part of the journey, and use vulnerability to deepen spirituality and relationships. Naomi and Ruth's testimony affirms hope often blooms unexpectedly, and trusting God means stepping forward without knowing the outcome. Even amid emptiness, Naomi chose return, openness, and readiness to live a new story. What steps can you take to open new paths in your life? What fears must be faced for faith to bloom again? Finally, we want to hear from you. How have these stories and reflections touched your heart? What practical actions can you take to strengthen your faith, resilience, and community? Share your experiences, so together we build a space of support, learning, and spiritual growth. Tell us in the comments what the greatest challenge your faith has helped you overcome is, and how you seek to renew your strength to carry on. We close Naomi's story with gratitude and hope. Her journey of loss, endurance, and unshakable faith spans the ages to teach us to persevere bravely. Our natural next step in Bible in Colors brings us to Mary Magdalene's path, a life and testimony, renewing commitment to transformative love and spiritual freedom's power. Just as Naomi found new paths through pain, Mary Magdalene exemplifies one who, freed, becomes the messenger of resurrection, the life that conquered death and restored hope to all. In the next episode, we dive into intense, inspiring accounts of a woman whose story transcends old interpretations to reveal vibrant faith, unbeatable courage, and a mission resonating today. You'll be invited to understand how her encounter with Jesus transformed her, and how her witness opened doors to a new understanding of women's roles in the early church and Christian walk today. Prepare to be moved, learn, and renew your spirit. Before we go, thanks to all who've journeyed with us, sharing stories, reflections, and hopes. We encourage subscription and notification activation to stay connected to this powerful continuing series, expanding our network of faith, mercy, and life in color. Your participation in comments further strengthens this welcoming community, growing in faith and love in action. Share this video with friends and family, seeking inspiration from real stories of overcoming and hope. May Naomi's message be a seed in your life and family, spreading courage, faith, and fresh beginnings wherever you are. Subscribe and turn on notifications to follow the next inspiring story on the channel. Share this message with those who need to hear that faith renews lives.